Virginia Freedom of Information Act. And whereas Section 2.2-3711 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the New Kent County School Board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the New Kent County School Board hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, one, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirement by Virginia law were discussed in closed meeting to which this certification resolution applies, and two, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed board meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the New Kent County School Board.
Like for a motion to approve the certification of closed session.
Make a motion to approve the certification as read.
And a second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. That's it. First item on our agenda today is a selection of VSBA delegate and alternate delegate. Currently, Ms. Swinford is the VSBA delegate and I serve as the alternate. Both the delegate and the alternate represent the school board for the 2021 VSBA Delegate Assembly, and we will vote on behalf of the New Kent School Board. Ms. Swinford has expressed interest in serving again as delegate for 2021, and unless anyone else is interested, I will continue as alternate.
Yeah.
Take a vote on that later in the agenda. Next item on our agenda is Chromebook contract renewal. Dr. Nichols.
All right, and I have Matt Hilfer, our Director of Technology, here to help out with any questions. So we do have in front of you for action later this evening a renewal of our Chromebook lease. We were able to work through a cooperative agreement with Chesterfield to receive the pricing that Chesterfield receives as a larger school division. I believe we're ordering about 2,300 Chromebooks. These Chromebooks will, part of the renewal is a 3-year lease. This is actually the third time we've done this lease across our history. It really came in handy during the pandemic when many school divisions were trying to order devices that we were actually already one-to-one. So this just continues that for us. In saying this, it is an increase, supply and demand. Everybody is looking for devices right now. So although we do get Chesterfield pricing with this, it is an increase of about $80,000, which we do have in our budget to cover that. Matt, I believe a question was asked about the difference in pricing had we done this alone.
Yeah, so if we'd done it on our own, I mean, it would be a ballpark guess, but we're only looking at 23 versus the 60 to 70,000 that's within the recent Chesterfield bid. But this is a renewal off their original one that they did with multiple hundreds of thousands of units. So the individual unit would have gone closer to 400 would be my guess if we had just done our own RFP and gone out.
And we're at about, my rough math, like 155 all in per device versus 400 devices. Doing that math times 2,300 devices, it's a significant savings for a small school.
Yeah, and it also comes with that service part that we're still continuing with DSI, as well as the warranty coverage, which is the big piece of what it's paid for. So it's not just like the cost of the unit, it's the cost of the device plus the warranty coverage that allows us to keep doing it. That unknown cost.
That's included in the lease?
That's included
Yes.
in the price. Yeah, the lease is just the breakdown of the pricing.
And these devices are just for students, or are they for teachers as well? Because we upgraded the teacher devices during the pandemic, so.
These are student devices.
Okay.
And Matt, where would these devices would go where?
These are 6 through 12. So this is the middle school, high school.
And then the 6 to 12 devices, the current 6 through 12 Chromebooks.
Are gonna
Triple down.
trickle down into the carts, and we've already started that project.
And then the elementary Chromebooks that go into the carts will go.
The existing Dells are we have a couple companies that are gonna do some buyback programs, but
Yeah.
they're 6 years old at this point, so we're talking a couple bucks per.
So
We
we'll-
tend to use them until they're not usable.
Yes, we use them beyond their 3 years.
So do we have a warranty on the ones that are at the elementary schools, or are we
The
handling
ones
their
that,
repair?
the ones that will go
in-house?
down will not have a warranty on them. And we use the volume that we have as parts and replacement. And then those actually come into our shop as far as fixing those on premise. And that's what we had done in the previous, from the first round of one-to-ones. When we got the second round, we pushed the middle school, high school units down to the elementary parts and did that replacement part. And we still had enough within that third year, this being the third year at the elementary level, that COVID hit, and we had to scramble a little bit to get a couple devices there, but that's typically what we do.
You're working on especially partnering with Chesterfield.
Yeah, it's a cooperative agreement that they have, that they've added to that, so it works well for us to be able to tie with that
And it's-
large procurement division.
And it's nice because large school divisions do not have to do that. And some do not do that. But it is very nice that it fits our needs and would actually allow us to order with Chesterfield as well. So one of my biggest questions is, yes, we can order them and we can pay for them. Can we get them? This helps us in this volume buying to get them as well. So 6 through 12 kids did take their Chromebooks home with them this summer. Not 12, 12 turned them in before they graduated.
Not yet.
But, well, many of our seniors. But so they'll have them when they return. And as we get these in, we'll be able to do the Chromebook swap and be able to work those through.
So will you get these before September? Is that the goal now?
That's the hope, fingers crossed, that they're in there. We're like Dr. Nichols said, we're in that bulk buy with Chesterfield and Rico has a couple in there too.
Supply is catching up. The lead time was like 6 to 8 months at some points. But they are making more and the supply is catching up.
I mean, the hope is to get them, but with the students still having their existing devices, we can manage for a little bit of time at that beginning of the year with them still having it without having the need of, we don't have the other fleet coming in. So we should be good starting off with that little leeway. But if we can get this signed and get it in, we should be good in September.
So this does, I believe, come for you for action. I did neglect to mention this. This has been thoroughly reviewed by our legal team as well to make sure it matches our policies and procedures and protects us in this lease agreement as well.
Next item on our agenda is student handbook, code of conduct. This is the first reading. Dr. Nichols.
But, so this is your first read for our student and family handbook. So one of the biggest changes to this handbook, and it's a state thing, is the changing of the codes. So when you get to behavior violations, they have different letters associated with them. So they changed the whole naming protocol from a data reporting standpoint. So if you are interfering with learning in the classroom, as an example, that's now a BAP1. And that's really for a state reporting code so that we're all consistent with those codes. That's the biggest shift in this code of conduct. The code of conduct because these things are covered in the code of conduct, several policies shifted, and we'll talk about those in the policy updates as well. But most of the policy shifts related to code of conduct were around pronouns. So instead of saying his or her, it says the student or the administrator or whatever the case may be. So this is a first read for the code of conduct. It has been schools and administrators. It has also been posted. Thus far, we have not received additional comment on it, but we'll continue that process between now and the second read. And of course, if you have any questions related to the code of conduct between now and then, we can certainly work through that.
Moving those pronouns, are they gonna change that on the degree as well?
So and it's funny because you and I had that conversation. One of your policy changes, and I won't be able to see it because I'm
I
looking
see
for
it.
it. Oh,
It's on
BCA.
page-
It moves from chairman to chair.
Yeah.
So that is, many of the shifts are related to that piece there. So,
You know, it was interesting when I was reading, just glancing at that. Looked like there was, maybe this is a map thing too, but it had a big piece about where they're reorganizing the technology piece. And one of it was, I guess, now that we can do certain things and allow e-signatures to do things now where you could not do them in the past. And I guess that all prompted from, COVID and all of that. But my question was, when I read that, is that how, and it didn't specify in that, how do you keep those e-signatures secure? Meaning is that if a parent goes on, kid gets a conduct violation, the parent has to sign off on it. And maybe they can do it through an e-signature for whatever reason, because they can't do it. How do you know that the student is not going to sign the parent's name versus the parent doing it if we're starting to allow electronic signatures?
electronic forgery.
I'm
Does
know,
anyone know what the paper?
and I guess when I saw that is that because I could see more policies going to e-signatures when it comes to conduct issues or policy issues, and do they have security and firewalls that protect us from people not doing that?
The issue is gonna be on the parent's account and whether or not the kid.
Does the student have to
So
log in?
It's
Does
gonna be
the student have to log in? Okay, that's
It'll
what,
be similar to the paper signature that, they went home with the kid.
okay.
We assume that they told them. and
It's
then-
it's interesting you mentioned that because we had the student vaccination clinics that the health department did in our schools, and we're doing round 2 Wednesday night. I was at the high school and the kid brought in his form, and it had electronic signature from mom. So the person flagged me down and said, I don't know, can I take an electronic signature? So what we did is we just went to the office, found mom's number, called mom.
Right.
She goes, oh no, this is my business. I electronically sign everything. So, I mean, we were able to navigate, but you're right, it is a little bit of a new frontier. I signed the contract for the new school electronically. And to me, that was a little nerve wracking, great, it's a big contract to put,
I know, right?
yeah, but it was through DocuSign and it was secure and all those
Yeah.
pieces.
But I just see that happening in
It's
the
a new
future
frontier.
when you add policies and procedures, is the security of that when you're talking about big items like we're talking in terms of the change of things moving forward. So
Password protected.
Don't give your kids your login.
Secure.
it could be,
Yeah.
if you have your login information.
That's the biggest.
It said something on there about, I guess, with the new rules with collective bargaining and the superintendent, and how does that work with is that still up to the board? Is that how that works?
So the school board, independent of the board of supervisors, we did get clarification on that.
Okay.
Cynthia is far more an expert on this. Independently decides and can make that decision whether to allow for collective bargaining or not.
Okay.
So the county could go one way and the schools could go another. We could go in the same direction. You can have ways. There will be some school divisions that move forward with collective bargaining.
But who is the advocate that negotiates that? Is it the
That'd be
superintendent?
the superintendent. So the superintendent's job fundamentally changes, or if you have an assistant superintendent that's really appointed. But
You got off on that one, Ross.
you really become, the head bargainer
Right.
for collective bargaining with the union or the association. So, yeah.
So it's a superintendent or their designee, basically.
But it falls back to the superintendent because we have to negotiate that with the board. But really, that's a decision that will be in your court and is always in the court.
Okay, just want to make sure.
So back to the policy updates. Do we have any further discussion on the red line?
We're still on code of conduct, right?
Yeah.
We kind of merged the two. I walked
Yeah.
into policy.
No.
I did D and not C.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's
Okay.
okay.
We just
Yeah.
went there.
I'm going, we're circling back. We do good
Thank you
things.
for getting me back.
All right.
So it's a first read for policy updates as well.
Yeah.
These are the VSBA policy updates. I was wondering why my tabs were off. I was off. So you can see the policies. This is the spring edition of the VSBA policies. You adopted the winter policies. As Miller does a fantastic job with, you have your overview that shows you what was exactly changed, and then behind it, you have the red lines. Most of them are minor legal references as state code changes have been updated, minor grammatical updates, which we've talked about. And like ICID, school year, school day, adds a paragraph about severe weather or emergency situations. You can do an unscheduled remote learning day. So that's a change in policy. That would not make you a very popular superintendent on a snow day to call a remote learning day, but we do have the
No playing in
flexibility.
the
What about
snow.
learning?
Everybody's-
It's a remote learning day.
The thing with that, and it's why it's a weird policy to have, you have to make sure that every kid would have access to the material, which in New Kent is especially difficult because of internet and those pieces. So I don't see us ever doing that.
Yeah.
Because I can't promise that every kid would have what they needed during that time, but it does allow you that flexibility to do that. Driver education, now it's dangers of distracted driving, specifically text messaging, phones, and so forth. So, but once again, this is a first read. If you have any comments or questions as you work through them, feel free to contact Miller or myself, and we can address them as you guys wish. So I think that gets us back on track. My staff's not to apologize.
Next on our agenda is CSA and outside placements. Dr. Clark.
Good evening, Madam Chairperson and members of the board. I am going to give a quick update on our private day placements for students. And as I update you tonight, I'm going to remind you just that the Children's Services Act really does establish a single pool of state funds that are used to service students and families in the community. And so with those state funds, they are combined with local funds, and an interagency group manages it. It's not us as the school division. And so with those funds, we are able to provide services for students that are typically in our school environment, but may have some difficulties learning efficiently in the school environment. And so one of the most important things we always have to take a look at is the least restrictive environment. And so private placement is considered a restrictive placement. And so that's why that decision is not made by any one person. It is a decision that the IEP team makes together. And then once that decision is made, we as a school division collaborate with the private day school that is chosen and the parents to monitor the progress of the student. And so you can go to the next one. As far as our enrollment is concerned, we had at the beginning of this year, a total of 8 students who were in private day placement. 1 student transferred as early as August. And so we managed 7 students this for a total this year, 1 elementary student, 1 middle school, and then 5 of our high school students. Those students, based on the chart, are up there based on their primary disability. And so you can see autism, emotional disability, and other health impairment is the disability that has the student being serviced in an outside placement. Our outcome at the end of this school year is for our high school, of the 5 students, 1 student did graduate with a standard diploma from New Kent High School. 1 will return back to New Kent High School next school year. And then we have 3 that will return to their private day placement for next school year. Our elementary and 1 middle school student will also return to the private day placement, giving us a total of 5 students as we start off the 2021-2022, lots of twos there, school year. As you can see a little bit from our historical outcomes, we have significantly reduced the number of students, if we take a look back from 2016, that were being serviced in a private day placement. And so again, I think that the IEP teams throughout the schools have done a really good job of making those decisions with as much information as possible and not taking that responsibility lightly. And so as we get ready to start the next school year, those 5 students, we have one of the 5 that will only be there for half a year, and they will actually graduate in January of 2022. And then we will have 2 students with autism who require some intensive support, and then 2 other students who have an emotional disability that we are really hoping that with some coping strategies and de-escalation techniques, that they will make their way back to us next school year as well. And I'll be happy to answer any questions about that.
So currently, how far are we transporting students to day placement right now?
I think we have one student that is as far away as Fredericksburg, but that will be the student that will be graduating early. So I mean, we'll be finishing the program early. And then the other students are in the Richmond area.
And every effort is made to have them as close as possible, but
Yes.
depending on the student's disability and needs and that piece.
Specialization of
Right.
the school. And I think one of the other things that we did this year as a team, we had to complete a survey and talk about some of the challenges. And one of the biggest challenge that everybody noted as part of the team was that we really don't have local options. And so there's every effort being made to really start to figure out what does that look like, because we're not the only division in our region that really does rely on some placements that seem to be far away. So.
And 2 years ago, the board asked us to look at the number of kids in private day placement because the costs associated with private day placement are pretty disproportionate. When you talk about a student going to Hampton every day in a car with the driver, those pieces. So Dr. Pollard and Dr. Clark have done a tremendous job with their team, really work with those IEP teams and say, can we provide that service here? And if we can't, then, so really just looking at that and expanding the services that we offer. So to go from 12 to 8 into potentially 5 is huge for kids, most importantly, because they're getting the services they need closer. But also for us as a division, it's just a more efficient.
As we recruit for special ed teachers, are there certain endorsements that would make them better equipped to be able to handle those types of students that have higher
Absolutely,
needs?
absolutely. And we're definitely putting more emphasis on looking at some of our relationships with our colleges and universities, specifically around what training happens around behavior management. Again, de-escalation strategy is huge. Trying to make sure that we start to develop this conversation around the training before the teacher gets into the classroom and not waiting until they are hired in a school division and looking for what does that training involve.
One is we talk about teacher salaries a lot as a general conversation, but specifically special ed teachers, and we making sure we're competitive with the surrounding districts.
Yes, I definitely think we are.
Any other questions or discussion? Next, thank you, Dr. Clark. Next on our agenda is SNS Contract Awards. Ms. Moore.
Yes, and Ms. Morkine is in an RV heading across country, and she's actually joining us. No, she's not. See, I gotta be careful when I say things about Ms. Morkine. It is a true story. She and her family are traveling. So I'm gonna do my best, and now that she's watching, I'm really gonna do my best. So we mentioned the Chromebook cooperative agreement that we worked through with Chesterfield. We also do that for other school divisions, and this is a perfect example. Leslie Smith, who's tremendous at what she does, really leads this Southside Food Cooperative School Division. So it's 13 to 14 school divisions, small rural school divisions. And so New Kent took the lead, Ms. Morgan, her team, and Leslie, to come up with a cooperative agreement for these contract awards related to nutrition services. So once again, bulk buying, bulk pricing, better deal, but we're all in it together and we support it. So so all of these RFPs includes that cooperative contract language, other school divisions can utilize it. Proposals were received on June 1st in response to providing groceries during the contract period. It's recommended that the school board award this contract to RRS Food Service and authorize the superintendent to sign the related contract documents. Another proposal, May 24th, was for a vendor to provide paper products. It's recommended that the school board award the contract to Riverside Paper Supply. Proposals on May 24th, once again, to provide chemical and cleaning supplies during the contract period. It's recommended the school board award this to S. Friedman and Sons. Those are the three proposals: groceries, paper, chemical, and cleaning supplies. So once again, this has been vetted by our legal team, and RFP was done, and these are the recommendations to award the contracts to. Be more than happy to answer any questions on Leslie and Haney's behalf.
Are these annual contracts or what?
Yes. This is,
I think we are.
This is a decision of.
it does because of the time of it would come. Right, and because it's been through the RFP process and it has been bid and vetted by legal, it doesn't require a second. in between.
So they're essentially below bids for each service provided.
Essentially met the criteria. we come up with.
Business is construction update, Mr. Pollock.
All right.
Good.
It's a relative term, depends on what you're handing out.
So while Tim's passing out, just
How y'all doing?
We're doing great. We're great. For the viewing audience and also for Ms.
Under
McMahon.
budget, so that's
always a good thing, right? Under budget right there.
We promised throughout this construction process, every work session, we would do a construction update. So that the public would have an update. We also do a monthly construction meeting in conjunction with a member of the Board of Supervisors, and Ms. Barber represents that for you. And then Mr. Pollock is a part of bi-weekly meetings for the construction. So we talk openly about change orders. We talk openly about reductions. Last time we came before you, we talked about the change order and the price, and then we talk about how we were offsetting that. So Tim, that was me setting the stage for you. If you want to take us through.
Basically, what he's telling you there on the first page, you see that was change order one. We brought this a few weeks ago to you. And what I'm doing here is I'm just giving you a stage to look at every time where we start and where we finish.
So that's the 53,882, right, Tim?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Then the next one there, you'll see all the changes that were done on change order two. This was for May. All right.
And that's a savings of 35,930.
Okay, so when we get this change order number 3 here. So as of right now, from the original contract that we signed at the original, for the original contract, we are at $24,887.50 below what that contract was. Yeah, let's keep that those. You get to page 4, this is a breakdown that some of the change orders in here that you see. This was some of them where we're using, where I told you every time that we have an allowance for all the site work. So on this one here is another portion that we used out of that allowance to keep everything in control. So it's no charge to us because it was already basically pre-done.
And we have a balance remaining in the
Yes,
allowance.
and
right
each
now.
hour, and each one separately, so we're trying to use what we can of each one, because they're non-refundable.
This is essentially a contingency.
No, Now, this is actually part of the original contract of the DE.
Let's see.
So in the DE process, there was a set amount of allowances that were put out.
So when there is a change that, or a requested change, the first thing we do is look, can
Can
this be utilized in an allowance? Therefore not touching our contingency. So Tim has done an incredible job of navigating that with our partners at Heartland and Mosley.
Yep, we're very well.
And then we meet several times a week and look at what are some possible reductions on our end to be able to offset as well. And make sure we still protect the integrity of the building. And one of the things that we looked at is we want the schools to be comparable. So if we don't have it at New Kent Elementary and we don't have it at George Watkins, we have no intention of doing it, but we don't necessarily need it at Quinton Elementary either. So an example is there were going to be bleachers in the gym, but we don't have bleachers in the gym at either two elementary schools. And it's a pretty significant cost, $26,000, $27,000. We can do a different solution if we needed some seating in there for far less once the project is done. So that's a $26,000 savings, which I think is reflected somewhere.
It is. It's a change order.
Yeah. Yeah, removal of telescoping stands for project, that was a little off, $25,152. So there we save a significant amount of money. We offset the Dominion power change that we had before, and we really changed nothing about the actual school. So we've been really working hard on that front to protect the contingency, push into the site allowances, and make any shifts that we can to still have a beautiful school.
I want to be upfront with y'all and all that too, because when we did the DE, when they originally put this contract out, a lot of this stuff when it was done was, what's coming up, we have allowances for a lot of our stuff like Matt's side. There's a lot of areas that we had allowances for security, for the electronic doors, all the stuff like that. But that was it for a year and a half. But the prices for that now is not the same. But we still have the same allowances we don't have to work off.
Right.
So that's going to be a point, when I get to that, that's going to be another give and take. Here's the checkbook I got, and that's what I'm going to have to work with.
So as you've seen in the pictures, we have come out of the ground. We have walls up in the gym, cafeteria space. We poured one of the instructional wings, and then what's next, Tim?
Right now, we're fixing to head down the other wings, pouring the slabs. We got A and B. Foundations going to be in, the CMU is on the way, footing is underway in sections D, underground plumbing and all for section D, and electrical is going in now. Site work wise, we have the storm line and going in that are coming on the front side of the building. The lighting that is out for the parking lot, we are limited on that. That's another thing I'm gonna have to work on. The lighting that is existing in the contract does not come all the way to the end of the road. It stops about 400 yards from it. It's just in the loop up top. So that's something else that I picked up on, that we're in the means of trying to, if I get the piping in, at least that's a big thing. Now while we're doing the contract versus we can come back later and put more lights in if we feel we need it. But it was something we picked up at the time. Utility wise, we're starting off-site utilities. They're just starting that now. We're gonna go all the way up until we get to our wetland areas where we can't do it until September. So that's in the process.
We have all our easements signed,
All of our
sealed.
easements are
Right, that's
done.
what I was
Yeah, I was gonna say, all of our
ask about
easements are
those.
finally done. That did come straight out of, that it was not in here in this contract. And when Rodney and them did the easements, that money for that came straight out of the actual, they took it out. So
Okay.
I will bring that to you at some point too.
We'll balance
show all
that in there.
Because I asked that this week where that actually, because I couldn't find where it actually came from, and that's where it was done. This is another, I want y'all to know where everything comes from.
So timeline, Tim, where are we?
We're, right now, they were saying that we're 3 days behind, but, you know, between everything that happened over the winter, that's really good. We're not hurting right now. We got that gully washer we had,
2 weeks ago, yeah, like
2
3 or
weeks
4
ago,
inches
yeah.
of rain.
yeah,
wasn't
3
it?
or 4 inches of rain we had messed us up for a couple of days. So,
Because here it says 6 days.
yeah, when you read back through it, you'll get to a point in the meeting where you get into the actual, when you get into where we are in our project meetings, it'll have it there for 3 days right here. Overall, our project is currently tracking 3 days behind on new business.
So what does our 2-week look ahead look like right now? Are we continuing on the same
I mean,
functions that
we
we're
should
doing?
be paving. We're gonna start paving the front entrance areas there. So, I mean, getting the site tightened up is great. That's gonna help us out a lot. I mean, the job is moving well. We've gone through 2 phases. We're going from being really, really wet to being really, really dry. And then, I mean, we're kind of now, hopefully get rain like once a week to kind of help the site stay, you know, workable, but not having
Mhm.
at the same time.
And our groundwater, is that?
It's that time of year, you know, our
still
groundwater is
draining.
pretty good right now. You're only getting the rain once or twice a week. We'll be back. Hopefully we have everything sealed up and done before we get to that part in the wintertime.
We're trying to get sealed before we get going
I
into
wanna
winter,
be-
so we can be under roof.
We all
And
want
it's,
to have structure tied in and getting on the roof, so, and units coming aboard.
So we're pretty close to on schedule, and our budget is 25,000 to do it right now. So contingency is intact, which is really, I mean, I can't say enough, Tim and his team, what they've done. It's just incredible to be where we are right now.
So one last question, any issues with materials deliveries? I mean, steel is something that's been.
No, I mean, we're
challenging.
still okay on most of the stuff, because we're not in, steel is one of the ones that we had a little bit, but
Mhm.
nothing right now on it. I mean, everything's being ordered so far out in advance, so they're trying to keep up with that. So we're the units, the stuff like that, you know, the big ticket items, just switch gears, all that, then everything is, we're trying to get everything checked off as the contractor needs it. We're trying to push for that, because we don't want to be behind.
But
Yeah,
the
we
nice
have
part
enough
about this,
time now to do that without
Yes.
getting into, the long lead times don't hurt us right now.
Yes. I mean, where before you got 6 months lead times, that's not like Brian said earlier, that's all starting to come down to. Now, cost of things, we've been fighting that battle, I spend more of my time fighting that battle in there, but when we get to this allowance part, that's gonna be,
Not gonna go as far.
yeah, it's just not gonna go as far. It's gonna be, when you see that you got a contract there, but you also had allowances for a lot of the work that's being done. So, to explain that, it's different for me. I really haven't done that a lot, where we have allowances for everything instead of that. But this one definitely hasn't set up that way.
Tim and I walked last week. And one of the nice, I mean, it's great to see a school coming up, but the local impact and the local work that's being done on the school from, you know, the site work with the PE, but also a number of the Masons. Tim said the Charles City,
Charles City over there, where the grout's coming from.
Where the grout's
There's
coming
a lot of the plumbers are from right in Newport News area, so it's mostly from right around.
so
this
the
area.
positive impact on community too, that, I mean, Mr. Mead said, you know, to be able to pull this off in the pandemic and impact the community is huge. And I really got to see that walking through just the jobs that it's producing. And I think that Wendy's is probably selling a lot of burgers every day too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you. The logo, thing, I feel about that. The logo for the school.
Yes, we,
Okay. We're gonna need
Tim and
that.
I talked about this, thanks, Tim. This morning, when you walk into school, there is a Terrazzo logo that will be there. So the Trojan head, when you walk in, is sort of an example of that. It is a polished concrete floor, but so we're gonna need the logos sooner than we anticipated. Actually, I
When
talked
you
to,
say logo, you mean logo or mascot?
yes.
I guess it's kind of
Uh,
both, isn't it?
So we're working on the koala and trying to get that.
Koalas, man, I'm just telling
Are we
you.
gonna be spelling it with a Q or?
Yeah, that's right. It's gotta be the Q.
So, hey, so I had a preliminary conversation with Mr. Moser today about we may need to speed up this mascot piece. Because Tim's gonna need that logo, or at least that design for the floor sooner rather than later.
So what is that process gonna look like? We're gonna put together a committee?
Similar to the way we did the school naming, we'll have a community input piece and, we'll bring it to the board. And we were thinking fall is a great time when kids are in session and do a logo design contest and all that kind of stuff. We'll have to speed that up some, but yeah. The long-eared bats we're not allowed to cut down trees in the wetlands
Oh, I
because
thought
of
you
the.
were gonna suggest that was.
Well, I'm getting there.
Yeah.
So the migratory habits of the long-eared bats native to, the Quinton area in the wetlands, we cannot cut trees between April 15th to September 15th. All true story. So, I mean, there is a native, doesn't flow off your tongue.
I'm thinking koala.
I don't think a long-eared bat would go over well in the community there, you know?
But anyway, so lots of options.
That's pretty awesome.
All right, let's see. Thank you. On our agenda is federal programs applications. No, I'm sorry, student fees, fines and charges, and.
I'm gonna take that one as well. So at last meeting, you had a first read of our student fees, fines and charges. So you had the red line document that showed what was shifting, not a lot was shifting. One of the primary examples is there would be a fee for DE biology, because at this time we're not offering DE biology. But pretty straightforward. We did get input from schools and teachers and brought it before you last time. We did not receive any comments between this meeting and last meeting. So we'd be happy to answer any questions related
The only
to.
question I had when I was looking through those fees again is that I saw on the athletic that it was $40 for an individual, $60 for an adult for a pass. Is it a stretch to think that you could, because I was thinking about a family that had 3 or 4 students that are in the system, maybe a couple of middle schoolers, maybe a high schooler, maybe a couple of, is there room to do a family pass?
Okay.
We had that before.
Just as a
we
thought,
Yeah.
to do a family pass, you have maybe, if it's 2 parents and then 1 child, it's this, but anything over 2 children is this.
Mhm.
Was it like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think they've gone up on the passes, so it's 40 for for a student, 60 for an adult. So 2 adults and 1 child is $160. I mean, it's not steep, but yeah, but if you figure, if you could do a family pass, we may get more families to do the family pass than an individual pass, but whatever that reasonable amount is, and I don't know the answer to that, but I think it would at least give some of these families with multiple students who play multiple sports. Like you could have a daughter that plays soccer, field hockey, and then a son that plays basketball or something else. So they could attend quite a few athletic events at $6. You go to 10 athletic events, that's $60, and
Across basketball season, that adds up.
so that's just 1 season.
Okay.
So
I can, what I can do between now and the next meeting is we can move forward with the.
yeah, just
fees,
move forward
And I
and
can
just
do,
add
we
it.
can do an addendum
Yeah, that's
with a
fine.
recommendation for the board, isolated and
Yeah.
added to it.
Just to make it reasonable for those parents.
Yeah, we can work on that.
But don't ask permission from VHSL, okay?
No phone call will be made.
Yeah.
That was isn't that the Trojan Pass?
Yeah, it was a Trojan pass.
So I think we did away with it because there wasn't enough revenue generated or something. like that.
Maybe we just added on to this as another alternative.
Right.
I can do that.
But that was the only thing that I saw on those fees that
Okay.
may help our families a little bit more.
I can bring that back.
up is federal programs, applications, Mr. Miller.
Yes, this is the second reading for Title 1, 2, 3, and 4, federal applications. Titles 1 and 2 exist within the consolidated application, and 3 and 4 are separate. Happy to answer any questions you might have on those.
And just for Ms. McBee, who wasn't here for the first read, those fundings we receive from the federal government, and they're set amounts based on our student size, free reduced lunch, the different components like that. So what we put together in those applications is how we plan to utilize those funds. And those are also vetted at the federal and state level.
So now we're gonna move on to our action items. Now here, a motion to approve personnel matters as presented.
I move we approve personnel matters. The superintendent's recommendation regarding personnel matters.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Do I hear a motion to approve student matters as presented?
Make a motion that we approve the student matters as presented.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And do I hear a motion to select Ms. Swinford as the 2021 VSBA delegate and myself, Andrea Stassel, as alternate delegate as presented?
I move we approve the Ms. Swinford as the VSBA delegate and Ms. Staskell as the VSBA alternate delegate.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Do I hear a motion to approve the Chromebook contract renewal as presented?
I move that we approve the Chromebook contract renewal as presented.
And do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Do I hear a motion to approve the SNS Contract Awards as presented?
I approve that we accept the SN Contract Awards as presented.
Do we have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Do I hear a motion to approve policy JN student fees, fines, and charges for the 2021-2022 as presented?
I move we approve the policy JN student fees, fines, and charges for 2021-22 school year as presented.
And do I hear a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Do I hear a motion to approve the federal programs applications as presented?
I move that we approve the federal programs applications as presented.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. When is our next?
Our next meeting is July
12th.
Right. Good. So it's-
It'll be our only called meeting in July.
And with that, our meeting is adjourned.